All right, guys, now we're starting to have some fun. We're starting section 3.3, getting in some very important stuff. Make sure you pay attention, ask questions if you need it. We're talking about relations, functions, domain, and range. And guys, every one of these things will be represented on the STAR test. I mean, some of the questions on your homework could be exactly the same on the STAR test. So make sure you're paying attention. If you need help, you need to come ask, okay? So let's look first at what is a relation. A relation is just a set of ordered pairs. So points, like an ordered pair would be like 3, 7. So a set of those would be a relation. And we can express relations in 4 different ways. The first would be a list of ordered pairs. We just talked about that, so some points is another way to put that, x and y values. Another way would be graphs. We also have tables. We also have something called mapping. And I'll tell you guys, tables, mapping, and ordered pairs are basically the same thing represented differently. So first, excuse me, I want to look at this graph that we have right down below. It says represent the relation shown in the graph as a set of ordered pairs. So we've got the graph there. All we have to do is write the ordered pairs for each one of those points. Now, I like to work left to right. You don't have to do that, but it's easier to grade, and generally when I'm grading, if it's easier, that makes me happier. So I'm going to start with the leftmost point over here. So I count over. Remember, it's left, right first. I have to go left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's to the left, so it's -5. And then I have to go up 1, so +1. And we can keep listing our points just like that. The next one looks like it's to the left 3 and down 2, so -3, -2. The next one's left 2 down, looks like 5, so -2, -5. Then we have one right at the origin. The origin is the point 0, 0. If I move over, I have to go over to the right 2 and up 2, so 2, 2. Then it looks like I have over 4, up 6. And then the last one looks like it is over 5, down 2, so -2. Please be careful, guys. If you did this on your homework or a quiz and you are off by 1 on 1 point or so, I'd probably be nice and give it to you. But if you're consistently miscounting, I will get you really bad on this, okay? So make sure you have those written down because it's going to make our next two problems much easier. We are going to take the exact same points and we're going to represent them as a table. So basically, you have to write your x's on the left, your y's on the right. So my first point in the ordered pairs was -5, 1. So x was -5, y is 1. Then I had -3, -2. I had -2, -5. Then I had 0, 0. I had 2, 2, 4, 6, and 5, -2. Now, you don't necessarily have to go in order, but again, it's easier for me to check if you put them in order. Generally, when you see them, they will be in order. Now, mapping. It's sort of the same as a table, but the thing you want to do is you don't want to repeat numbers inside the circles. Like if you look at our y values, I have 2 -2s. There'll be no reason to write it twice. So my x values, I'm just going to start listing them out. I had a -5, a -3, I had a -2, 0, 2, 4, and 5. And then I want to do the same thing with the other one, but order really doesn't matter. I got a 1, a -2, a -5, a 0. I have a 2, and I have a 6, but I have another -2, but there's no point in writing it twice. Now, once you've done that, here's the mapping part. -5 is mapped to 1. -3 is mapped to -2. -2 to -5, 0 to 0, 2 to 2, 4 to 6, but then 5 is -2 as well, so it goes just up like that. So guys, mapping, tables, ordered pairs, not really that complicated. Just be careful. Don't make stupid little mistakes. That's generally what gets people. Now, let's go to the next page. Here are three of the most important things that you're going to learn today: domain, range, and what a function is. Domain is all the possible values for the input of a relation or function. That means all the x values. So x values are what we're going to use from domain. I'd like to add something to that. It's all the values from the leftmost to the rightmost, because x values are on the horizontal axis. The range is all the possible values for the output of a relation or function, and that's all the y values. And I want to add something to that. That's from the lowest, so from down to the highest, up. Okay, and I'll explain the left, right, down, up here in just a minute. Now a function, and I've seen star questions that simply ask which of the following is a function, so this is very important. It's a relation that assigns exactly one value in the range to each value of the domain. And the thing you need to remember is x's cannot repeat. They must be different, okay? And I'll show you what I mean by that in some examples. So we're going to start off with some fairly easy ones here. These will be really quick. It says state the domain and range, then determine whether or not a relation is a function. So a second ago we talked about domain being all the x values. So when I do the domain, I'm going to open up this little squiggly brace there. I'm going to write all the x values. I have 2, 3, 6, and -1. And I'm going to close it. Okay, notation is kind of important, so please put those braces. The range is all the y values. So I have 4, 5, and there's another 5, but I don't need to repeat it, and then a 3. Whoops. How about I write a 3 correctly? And then I'm going to close it out. Now, if you put 4, 5, 5, and 3, I'll give it to you, but you do not have to write repeated y or repeated domain or range values. I'm sorry. Now it says, is it a function? Do x's repeat? Actually, I'm sorry. It says, are the x's different? Well, if I look at my domain, all of the x's are different, so they do not repeat, meaning yes, this is a function. So when you look at this, if you had any repeated x values, then you're going to have not a function. And think about this. Let's say I had y equals x plus 2. If I have a function, that means I can plug 1 in there and only get out 3. But if I could somehow plug 1 into something and get out 3 and 9, that is not a function. That doesn't make any sense. So number 3 is basically the same problem. First I want the domain, then the range. So the domain is 1, -2. I've got a repeated 1, so I'm going to leave it out, then -4 and 2. The range, 9, 5, 6, -3, and 8. So it says, is it a function, or all the x's different? Well, if I look back over here, I have 1, and when I plug it into this function, somehow once it gave me 9 and once it gave me 6. That means it is not a function. So the answer to that is no. All the x's are not different. Now the same thing basically happens for this last problem. It says express the relation shown as ordered pairs, then state the domain and range. And it says, is it a function? So we need to write these as ordered pairs first. I'm going to write it down here at the bottom. Well, 2 is mapped to 12. Looks like it's also mapped to -3. 1 is pointing at 5. It looks like 0 is pointed at 0. And then it looks like -1 is pointed at 5. So let's write the domain, and this is really easy because here's your domain right here. We're going to have 2, 1, 0, and -1. The range is right here, 12, 5, 0, and -3. And then the last thing says, is it a function? Well, let's look at our x values. Looks like here somehow they put in 2 and got 12 once, and the next time they did it, they got -3. So this is not a function. Now, this can be really easy if you'll try to remember and practice this on your homework. If not, it can be really hard, so please pay attention, okay? Let's go to the next page. Now, we're going to be taking domain and range from graphs, and this is mainly how it's done on the STAR test, and it has a certain notation. This is where that up, down, left, and right stuff comes in. When you're talking about domain, you want to go from the leftmost to the rightmost. And when you're talking about range, you want to go from the lowest or the bottom to the top. And if you'll remember that, you'll always be able to pick these out. Let's look at the graph real quick. Now I want to talk about domain. So domain, I need to go from left to right. So I want to find out what's the leftmost that this graph goes to. If I count, it looks like it goes left all the way to -3. Now if I want to see how far right it goes, I just need to look at this arrow. That says it's going to go on forever, okay? So when you're doing domain, I want that squiggly brace, and by putting the X, then a semicolon, that means you're talking about domain. Domain is the X values. Well, since we're talking about X, since we're talking about the X values, I can see that X is going to be bigger than -3 no matter what. It keeps going to the right, it's getting bigger and bigger, but since it's a closed point right here, it's also equal to -3. So be careful. If it keeps on going with an arrow, X is either going to be bigger or smaller than something. Remember, when we're talking about X values, moving to the right means it's getting bigger. Now, range is low to high. Now, I can't really tell how low it goes because, again, it keeps going down forever, but I can tell that it goes all the way up to 2. So I'm going to open up my squiggly brace. I'm going to specify that I'm talking about range, and I'm going to talk about Y. Now, as Y goes forward, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller because going down means Y is getting smaller. So that means my Y is always less than or also equal to 2. Now, guys, this can be a little bit confusing on these ones with arrows. Be careful. Find those points. I mean, if you've got -3 in your answer and maybe you messed up the inequality, well, at least I know you knew something. I can give you points. But if you leave it blank and don't try to at least count, I'm going to have to count it wrong every time. Let's go to the next two. Number 6 is similar, but I want to point out that it has an open point. So whatever we get, it's going to be greater than or less than. So first, I want to talk about domain, so X. Now this time I can't see how far left it goes because it goes that way forever, but I can tell that it goes over to 5. Now if I'm going left on the X, that means my X's are getting smaller, so my X's are all smaller than 5. If I look at the range, I'm going to say Y dot dot. Well, it goes all the way down to -2, and I know it's going to be Y, but if Y is moving and it goes up, they're getting bigger. So Y is greater than -2. Now these are a little bit easier if you'll pay attention to the points. One of them is going to be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. The other one's not also equal to. So I'm going to open up my squiggly brace and write X. But guys, these are in between two numbers. So I'm going to write X in here like this. Well, X at its lowest goes down to -6. I'm going to put -6 in here. And at its highest, it goes up to 4. Well, over here at the -6, it's an open point, and -6 is as low as it goes, so -6 is less than X. But at 4, it's solid, so it's less than or equal to. X is in between, our domain is in between -6 and 4. Now range, let's put our Y in our semicolon. I'm going to put a Y right here. I need to see how low it goes. It looks like the lowest it goes is -2, and the highest it goes looks like 6. Now at the -2, it's an open circle, so -2 is less than Y, but at the 6, it's closed, so Y is less than or equal to 6. Let's go ahead and finish number 8 and 9. Now my paper is a little off, so you can put range. We'll put range at the bottom. If I look at this one's another one that's in between. So I'm going to go ahead and leave some space and put an X. It goes all the way over leftwise to -8. And on the right side, it goes up to 2. They're both closed, so they're both going to be less than or equal to. Then we have our range. So it's in between again. I'm going to put a y right here. The lowest it goes is to -4. The highest it goes is to 1. Since they're both closed points, they're both equal to as well. And let's look at this last one where they're both open. I'm going to go ahead and write range in here. Start our domain is x. Our x is going to be in the middle. It looks like we go over to -3 and all the way up to +5. And since they're open, -3 is less than x, which is less than 5. And then our range, y dot dot, leave some space, put a y. It looks like it goes down to -1 and up to about 2. It looks like it's in the middle there. I'm just going to put 3. That's probably a little mistake. So -1 is smaller than my y's, but y is smaller than 3. Guys, this is super important stuff. You absolutely need to know this. Make sure if you're having problems that you come and ask questions. Good luck.